All right, five, four, three, two, one. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Just meeting some folks. We'll get ready in a sec. Okay. So we'll give folks a couple more minutes and then we can get started. Thank you all for joining. All right. Folks, what do you think about? Shall we get started? All right. Um,
Let's give folks maybe 2 more minutes,
yeah,
6:05.
yeah, we can do that too.
We jump in.
Yep, oh, we got one more. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's get started.
I'm sure some other folks may join. The beauty of this digital format, virtual format, is that this is actually being recorded, and we'll make sure everyone who's on will get a copy of this for their own use. But you could also share it with friends and family, and whoever you feel might be interested in um, looking at this info session and learning more about this exciting opportunity I'm going to share a little bit about today. I'm really pleased and happy to see so many familiar faces. Thank you for joining. So, on behalf of Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice and the design team, I would love to welcome and thank you for joining us today. Again, please note that today's recording session is being recorded and it's for public use, so everyone will receive a copy of it. And we ask that you feel free to use it and share it. I hope my background noise isn't too loud. Um, Good. It sounds like you can hear me. So we'll be using all different forms of communication today. I want to encourage folks to use the chat. We have two active folks using helping us on tech support. Amarani from Public Works is helping us, and Reese Brosco from Youth Ministries is also helping us. They'll be monitoring the chat, responding to questions, and later on we'll have a Q&A portion of the evening where we'll be able to ask more questions and unpack more things. Again, good evening. My name is David Shuffler. I'm part of the Youth Ministries of Peace and Justice team. For those who know me and those who don't know me, I'm a child of the Bronx. Grew up a couple blocks from this Soundview Economic Hub, a site where we're pushing to lead a community art project with the hopes that in the future we'll be developing a larger climate resiliency and economic hub. We're here today to share some information about the vision for that hub, and more specifically today, the call to artists. After the presentation, we'll take some time to address your questions and comments through the Q&A period. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you for taking the time with us today. This info session will be about an hour long. Ideally, we'll stop talking in the next half an hour or so and leave a lot more time for Q&A and things like that. And I just want to again remind folks that this presentation is being recorded. On the next slide, I just wanted to go over a little bit about what to expect for today. There's a run of the agenda. We're going to start with some welcome and introductions. We want to give some background about what the Soundview Economic Hub is. This portion, the first phase of activation of the site, we're launching with a call to artists who are going to help us beautify the space and bring some attention by doing some placekeeping, some placemaking at the site. We'll have a Q&A, and then we'll jump into some timeline and next steps. And I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Mador.
Hi, everyone. As David said, thank you for joining us today. My name is Madhur, and you've probably seen some emails from me. So you will be reaching out to me with any questions, and I'm glad to see, again, a few familiar faces as well. I just wanted to also introduce you all to the larger team. So YMPJ is the project lead for this project, and we have been partnering over the years with Hester Street, which is an urban planning firm. We also have the support from our elected officials, Assembly Member Kenny Burgos, Council Member Rafael Salamanca, and Council Member Amanda Farias. We also have a legal team that is supporting us, Cousin O'Connor, and we have a community partner, the Bronx Defenders, working with us on this project. We also have great technical support from the teams you're seeing on your screen, which is Bureau Happold, INEAD, Public Works Partners, and Urban Design Forum and the Association for Neighborhood and Housing Development. On the next slide, you are going to see what has been the timeline for this project. In about 2014, which was 10 years ago, was when the community expressed interest in this project. And there was a feasibility study conducted by the state as part of the Hunts Point Access Project. And the site was constructed to make it look like a white box space, which is what you see in the picture in the middle, which is the present. The site is placed under the Bruckner Expressway on Bronx River Avenue. In case you haven't been there, you've driven past it, and you have probably also seen the sort of transformation of the space. And this year, actually, in the summer, with the artists and an art activation, is the first time we're going to have the community be present in the site. So that is really exciting. On the next slide, you will see sort of the work that YMPJ has done so far. We have done a number of community visioning sessions. We have also spoken to some stakeholders. We've tried to raise some funds for this project and are currently in the phase where we are designing for our larger vision and are also working towards site control from New York City Department of Transportation. On the next slide, you will see what came out of the first visioning sessions, which might be our larger vision for this site. As David said, we imagine this site to be a climate resiliency hub with features for workforce career development, possibly becoming a community food hub, and also looking at it as a hub for small and local businesses. So we also at YMPJ, we definitely are looking at this majorly as a community space. On the next slide, you will see what is our vision for 2024. So as I was saying, in the summer of 2024 is really the first time we're going to have the community be present in this space to contribute to our larger vision. So what we imagine the summer of 2024 to be is a food, arts, and culture festival. And so the rendering you're seeing on your right is what we have been working with, for it to have art, for it to have some vendors, some space for performances. And we're now going to see some more features of the site on the next slide. So you're seeing some art display and planters. We'll also have acoustic protections. We will have some cafe seating. We'll have a space for vendors, as I was saying, some performance space. And yeah, just really excited to have the community be in this space in 2024. On the next slide, you will see what we have imagined the art could look like. So it could be displayed on panels like this. It could be murals. What you're seeing here is what the pathway could look like. We might possibly have a shipping container that could be painted, the details of which we'll get into in the coming slides as well. But this is just sort of to give you all an idea of what we imagine the space to be. On the next slide, you will see what the view from Bronx River Avenue will look like for once the site is ready for 2024 summer. And then on the slide after, you're going to see what it feels like to be in the site looking northeast. And on the next slide, this is sort of an idea of what the panels on which the art will be displayed could look like. Of course, we're still working through some of the sort of features and what we might want to improve with this. And this is a concept at the moment, but this is what we imagine it will look like. Yeah, and now I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Joel at Public Works Partners to take us through the logistics for the call to artists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother. That was a great introduction to the site. We're really excited to see what we can accomplish together here. This part is definitely about the nuts and bolts of this first phase 1, where we hope to do really a temporary art installation on this site. Very excited to be part of the design team. We're going to be working closely with YMPJ, looking at your proposals, and really our job is to make sure you have what you need to be able to express your vision, get it, and have it realized for the summer. I want to point out first, this is how we're envisioning the timeline. We want to make sure we're giving folks as accurate an assessment of the timing as possible. This is a timeline that represents really an ambition to have our work up for display at the beginning of July and at least throughout the end of the calendar year, and hopefully with the opportunity to extend for at least up to 11 months. And so some general context, what we're working with really is we're while we're simultaneously with this process of activating the space with art, we are currently working on site control and for what will be one of the newest official pedestrian plazas in the Bronx from DOT. What this means, though, is that our RFP does reflects some requirements that we know DOT will have. And so we are doing our best to make sure that the art that you're able to submit will be ultimately approved by DOT. We realize we're requiring quite a bit up front. This is hopefully to be able to minimize any back and forth. We're ready and able to take that on. But if you're unclear about just a submission requirement or like what we're asking for, and we can talk about this, just let me and Mother know, and we can work through it or help clarify. But with that broader piece of context, just want to flag this piece. This application approvals reflects this 90-day requirement for submitting to the NYC DOT's Art Interventions program. So that's probably the main piece and one of the biggest drivers of this timeline in order to be able to have this up this summer. We'll talk a little bit about it more in the Q&A, but I want to highlight, again, talking about how this dovetails with DOT's own public art program. These are types of art interventions that we know and DOT has told us will be well received. We welcome proposals that both existing pieces of art or new proposals for art incorporating some of these types of interventions, sculpture, 3D. We have a fence surrounding the site, and so we're obviously any proposals that interface with the fence. Art displays, we have our own art panels, but if there's a proposal that incorporates some other displays, we're open to that. And then this, you'll see on the top left, this 2D artwork for printing on vinyl adhesives. One of the reasons we're doing this, and this is, we just want to say this up front, because the floor is concrete, we are not able to paint directly onto the floor, but vinyl or designs, graphic designs that can be printed onto vinyl adhesives are not only acceptable, they're encouraged. And so we're hopeful that will be part of the overall vision. I think one more, just in terms of painting and muraling, it's not fully we'll talk about this towards the end of the presentation. There are aspects of the site that aren't necessarily under the purview of NYC DOT, and so there might be or likely opportunities for painting that we'll get to later. So if that's what you were thinking, don't tune out necessarily. We're also we're working particularly right now on access to electricity. So if you're thinking of light displays or projections, that is something that will likely be, but not necessarily guaranteed. So we didn't want to memorialize it right now. But these are the types of things that we're thinking of in terms of what we're looking for, what you might be able to help with us on the site. Just briefly, obviously, the art, whether it exists or whether it's something entirely new, we're hoping it really speaks to the overall vision for the Soundview economic hub, climate resiliency hub. We care deeply about issues of environmental justice, climate resiliency, anything that speaks to the history of Soundview and the community, issues of gentrification, displacement. These are some themes that we encourage you to consider, and excited to see what we have submitted. Next, I think this really is the bulk of, like, in terms of nuts and bolts, how we're really viewing these submissions. Because of, again, the Arterventions program, they evaluate these based on 4 broad criteria. And we want to first, before we go any further, make sure that they know that they'll satisfy these 4 criteria, and we'll explain exactly what these mean. These are issues of public safety, artistic merit, site suitability, and durability. Public safety is pretty straightforward. It basically means no public safety hazards. Think about the materials you're using if they're sharp. Pretty straightforward. Artistic merit is probably the most subjective, but primarily making sure that the proposal, whether it exists or whether it's new, makes sense for the space that we're talking about, and that the vision that you all have as artists can be executed. You have experience, working with with the media and some experience exhibiting in the public realm. Or if you don't, you're part of a team where someone has experience with public art. Site suitability, we think the site is more than suitable, but just making sure that the piece, makes sense in terms of scale, the type of art, that you're thinking of questions of accessibility. If a user in a wheelchair can see it, for example, questions of ADA regulations. We want to make sure that this is accessible to as wide an audience as possible. And then durability, ultimately this piece is going to be exposed to the elements in some way, and we're going to do, we intend to maintain this piece as best as we can, but Mother Nature, and so thinking about materials and what is best suited for the change of seasons, for weather, and whether the proposal incorporates some understanding of natural wear and tear. So those 4 pieces, like, we'll be looking for that. And in terms of other things that we're going to be looking for, obviously, like the overall vision and impression of the application. This is also, we really are committed to showcasing Soundview Bronx-based talent. And so this is an opportunity, don't be shy, to talk about your connection to the neighborhood, to the Bronx. And we want to make sure that that we're representing art that represents the Soundview community in Bronx. Again, alignment with the themes and with the overall goals of the Soundview Economic Hub, with the activation this summer, and the originality, creativity, and then feasibility too, whether it makes sense to have a piece of art on display in this way for this period of time, and the logistics involved. So, and we can talk more details in the Q&A, but four major criteria, essentially a yes or no, and then we'll evaluate that way. Submission requirements. So again, this is all in the RFP, and we can link to this periodically throughout. But we are hoping that, or we anticipate folks submit their RFP. They can email it in a zip file to both me and Madhur, make sure we both see it by March 6th, 11:59 p.m. What that means, this includes, a statement, and we'll discuss what that entails. Resume or resumes if you're working with working in a team, work samples, and if it's an existing piece, like obviously pictures of that and the details surrounding that existing piece. Then a very basic budget. I want people like just a basic understanding of like any fabrication costs, installation, materials, artist fee, so you can get a sense of how much we're working with. In terms of the artist concept statement, there are a few components. I just want to make sure that that's clear. Obviously, part of this concept statement is about the piece, the materials that you're going to be working with, the media, the themes. This is also an opportunity to talk about yourself as an artist and how you and what inspires you, and obviously your connection to Soundview, to this part of the Bronx. And of course, the materials or any meaningful fabrication or installation or de-installation requirements. Definitely, please put that in there. And so, we hope to. The reason we are asking for all of this is because we will eventually have to roll this all up and submit it to DOT. So you might as well do it now. So if you have any questions, if you feel like you're not able to, again, like get some of these aspects into the application, just let us know as soon as possible and we can figure something out. But we really hope that these applications are as complete as possible, so that we minimize the amount of back and forth we need to do. And next slide. So I think overall roles and responsibilities, again, we hope we'll get some applications in by March 6th. We'll spend some time, evaluating. We will get back to you, and we'll talk about this in the timeline about selection. In terms of like a responsibility, it's really mostly a question of knowing that you'll be available for some coordination really at the end of March and really during the spring, so that we can have everything ready to go and installed at the beginning of July. And so we will supervise, we need your help transporting and installing a piece if it exists, fabrication, and we should be on site in terms of uninstalling and having a storage plan in case it needs to be moved. But again, we'll help, we'll oversee that. In terms of our responsibility as YMPJ and the design team, we will take care of the permits, we'll take care of the applications, insurance. We may follow up with you on specific issues, but we will take primary responsibility for any of that paperwork and those costs. We will provide some of those, at least money, or provide those fabrication or those materials that we need. We hope to have, again, electricity. We will be maintaining this art, during the installation period, and making sure that this art gets back to you at the end. And of course, part of this, and making sure that you are compensated as artists, and this of course includes, an artist stipend and artist fee. So this is kind of a overall sense of responsibilities, but and we can again get into more of this during the Q&A. But yeah, I think, and then finally, before we get into Q&A, again, because there's a bit of a jurisdictional fun part of the space. The ground is owned by city DOT. The structure, the Bruckner Expressway, is owned by state. Currently working with state. But what this means ultimately is we are trying to figure out whether we can paint the columns, and we'll update you as soon as we know whether we are able to paint the columns. But there are opportunities to help activate this space, or will be hopefully opportunities to help activate the space beyond the confines of the DOT, the Art Intervention Program. And so I just want to make folks aware of this and make sure that we're on each other's radars in case anything changes or we learn more, and we can open up some of those some aspects of those applications to get more artists, more proposals in. And depending on what folks submit, we could have, it's not just necessarily one team who wins. It could be we could have more than one team ultimately helping us with this space. And so we're really excited to see what folks have in mind for this space. That was a lot, I realize. So really, ultimately, this is I think we can kind of open up the floor. I know folks beforehand submitted some questions. I'm happy to try and answer those. But yeah, this really is a time to ask away. We'll do our best, and I may pass it along to some other team members in case they can speak to things better. But thank you for listening to all of that, and we'll open it up. Okay. Or if folks want to read some questions on our team.
Does anyone want to get off of mute, introduce yourself, ask any questions?
I saw Jonathan.
Hey guys, I'm really delighted to hear about this project, and I think it's long overdue for a project of this sort all over the Bronx. And that said, as a member of Bronx 100, or maybe it's 200 now, and I've been adopted by the Bronx. I've been here now for 10 years, so I'm sort of new or not new, depending on your perspective. And I've gotten to really love the Bronx because it's probably the weirdest, most surreal borough of the city, and probably the most exciting one because of all the artists that are moving in. That said, many of the projects throughout the city seem to be very insular and dedicated to its own project. And my question simply is, how much, and I don't know the organization that's involved with this, David, so my question may be moot, and that is, how much is the project extending its energy, its mandate, its importance to many of the other projects that are working with other types of agencies, such as the Kingsbridge Armory issues, and which is sort of kind of being co-opted by the EDC, which is their normal form of reaching out to the public saying that we would love to have community involvement. That's generally a false concept. So my question is, in terms of showing the power, the mandate, the energy that is happening, is there a program to kind of spread the intensity of this so that other agencies know this is going on, and perhaps they need to model themselves reference to this project? Whatever process can happen to essentially embrace the other projects, because often in the nonprofit arena, I don't care whether it's, and I've been involved in nonprofits for 30 years, most organizations pretty much are insular and do not want to share, do not want to bring in the other energies of other projects that may not even be related. But I think it's important with the Bronx, really is. We can do things that generally get left aside. So that's my thought, and my question is that part of the mission statement of this project?
someone from YMPJ want to take that on? The short answer is yes, but I would, I don't know if folks want to elaborate. Yeah.
Maybe I could talk a little bit about the organization and the partners we do have, and that might help understand what we're trying to do. Essentially, like we were saying, the project is a community project, but we work with a lot of community partners, one of who you saw in the beginning was Bronx Defenders. They're working with us on this art installation, but we always, on our other projects and this one, we work with various other partners like the Bronx Joy Alliance, South Bronx Unite, many others that I probably will take me a long time to mention. We're also part of the Bronx Wide platform, which it looks like you might be interested in looking at that as well. It is a group of nonprofit organizations in the Bronx coming up with a plan, a 30-year plan for the Bronx. And we're very heavily involved with that as well. So definitely YNPJ is working with partners and not in a silo at all. But that question was really great. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for your answer, and we can follow up later with the longer list.
Thank you. We got
Yeah.
a bunch of questions. Oh, sorry, David, go ahead. Yeah. Okay.
I was just gonna take up more space, so I'll be quiet.
I just want to make sure a number of folks put some question or sent our folks some questions, and I want to make sure we get to those too. One question, how many projects are you looking to fund? I think it really depends. It perhaps not the most satisfying answer, but it depends on the scale of the projects we're talking about. We obviously want to be able to showcase as much talent as possible, but it depends on questions of budget and what the proposal is. But that is to say, it's not necessarily one artist or one team who gets selected. It could be a few, depending on what folks have in mind.
I'm also sorry, I'm also seeing folks raise their hands if we want to try to do those first. Maybe
Sure.
Sean, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Let's unmute Sean. That work? There we go.
Hey guys, how are we doing today?
Good.
So I'm listening to your proposal right now. I just got a few questions. One, since you have all these sponsors, right? What are they bringing to the table, as people would say? Like, what are they investing? And also, I saw that one of the requirements was a basic budget, right? What does that look like? Like, I saw you had a set number in before the interview and for your programming. So now you're saying that it might be not one artist, but multiple artists. So what does that look like to you? Like, because somebody can come to you with a budget and it might take up the entirety of what you, and I don't know if you have the funding as yet, or if you have the backing from your sponsors, or you're going to reach out to the, the government to get the funding as well. But what does that look like to you? What seems reasonable for you to like ask for any artist to do this project with you guys?
I think, and folks like from the design team or like other folks, feel free to weigh in. We, part of the local center, like we have an implementation budget of around $50,000 to be able to transform the space this summer. Part of that is also, issues of lighting and soundproof and some of those construction costs. We're trying to reserve as much as possible what we can for artists. 10,000 is a number. It can be, I think ultimately like is not a number necessarily set in stone. But we're also getting, we're trying to supplement our implementation budget with in-kind donations, more trying to get more money in there. But want to get a sense, particularly of the complexity, or like what if it's a new, or if it's something to be commissioned, how much that might cost to fabricate or to take on some rounds of fabrication versus versus an existing piece, that kind of sorry, you're muted. Oh, can someone unmute, Sean?
Thank you. That didn't answer the question. I know
Yeah.
you just told me a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know the size of the wall. If I'm getting a pillar, what is it that you're actually looking to do? There's no specifics here. So like, even if we submit artwork, how does that artwork fit on what you want to do? Like, that would help us a ton more if you could give us a little bit more logistics so we can apply to this. And then also, like, again, even though you want us to send you a budget, you're saying $10,000, right? And multiple different artists. That might not be enough. I'm just letting you know. So I know a lot of people might not have, we're all listening, but still, like, maybe a better perspective of what you have and what, because again, you say you have these sponsors, but you didn't say like, well, we're getting this much from this sponsor or this sponsor. And then also this year alone, if it's anything from the government back in, I'm already with a couple of nonprofits, and the government is struggling right now to pay off their debts. So I'm just saying from that perspective, and already going down this path already, like a little bit more reassurance, especially for us as artists, would help go a long way. So, I mean, I love what you're saying. It sounds like a great project, but just a little bit more details into the minutia of it all would help us go a long way, especially when you're asking us to make a basic budget for what we need, and we don't even know what that looks like. I mean, you showed us images, which is fine, but the specifics is not what we're getting. And that's something that would help us a lot.
Yeah, there's a little bit more, I would say, there's a little bit more in the RFP itself, just on the dimension or like some of those aspects of the space. I don't know if folks want to talk, if that's helpful, we can talk a little bit about
Sure.
I'd love to share just a little bit more clarity about it. So again, we from our list of sponsors, and sponsors is pretty vague in terms of like who came, but we have $50,000 secured in our pocket that is not questionable. Like, the government was to shut down today, we still got the 50,000 that we'll be able to spend on this project. A sense of like around cost, the art panels that you saw, the wooden art panels that was like sort of floating in the space, those were all commissioned some time ago, but they were 6 foot by 4 foot wooden panels that were about $1,600 per panel, that artists were compensated to do a 6 by 4 foot panel. That was sort of what we put forward to artists. In this case, what we're trying to solicit, based on the $50,000 that we have in hand, is, someone may come to us with a fabrication of, many different art pieces that paints the shipping container, that may have some of those floating panels that may go up at upwards of the $50,000, right? But someone else may come with another option that has an art sculpture that is a $5,000 commission piece, right? So we're trying to be a bit flexible in terms of, and knowing that artists use different mediums, different fabrications, different tools, to be able to be flexible to meet the different design considerations and thoughts. We're definitely open and willing to speak to everyone individually as well too, as you develop your budget, right? Or even before you develop your budget, to start thinking about, like, all right, if you if we saw $100,000 proposal, we'll probably be taken aback by that, only because we only have less than sort of $50,000 in our hand. We have $50,000 in our hand. And
Which
we
is
hope
valid.
to spread that
Yeah.
at least far and wide as much as possible, so that we could buy the materials and fabrications that you would need to actually do the art installation. So we have this sort of cat and mouse kind of situation where, you know, we have these resources in hand, which we were able to secure. Um, you know, there's never an endless, you know, there's never endless resources to do anything, which I wish we had endless resources so that everyone on this phone, on this Zoom, could get their pieces submitted and supported. And we're sort of left and stuck with the considerations of the art intervention program, as well as, you know, the sort of themes that we want to put forward and see, you know, the realities of the limited budget that we have, as well as what we hope to attract people into the space, you know. So, you know, I know that I hope I answered some of your stuff to say that what we had in hand, you know, how we are trying to divvy it up. And we also want to extend ourselves to everyone on this call, even before you put your budget together. If you wanted to float your concept by us before you wanted to submit your proposal, we could jump on a call, 15, 20, half an hour, to sort of tease out your idea, um, get a sense of what your budget may be before you put it on paper. And if that's a resource and helpful to each of you before you put in that time, I'm going to offer Mador and Joel to be able to do that for you.
All right. Well, I guess that answers my question for the time being. But thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
I guess just a few questions I know we'll be able to quickly answer. There's one.
Joel, I
again,
saw Dennis's hand. I'm sorry.
sorry.
I
Yeah,
just want
yes.
to give him.
Let's mute Dennis.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I had a couple of quick questions. I am curious about the bigger picture. Once the artwork is gone, who moves in, who creates, who engages the community, corporations, community, who is it? Safety. What are the hours? Who are the people that access the space? Protection of work. What does this look like? Also, there is a community programming engaging aspect of this. I also remember, and I'm just thinking about that includes the 50,000 at the moment being spread amongst other artists doing also community engagement. I'm just trying to think of budget and the parameters of everybody. How many, how small does 50 become? Understanding everyone has a creative process, thinking about fabrication. Also, the images that I got for advertisement look like mural painting somewhat. So I'm thinking of the space. If it's not safety, the idea of photos, how's that being protected, and insurance, but also the idea of if painting is possible, is there a budget to remove this work? That's what I have right now, but I know I will have more and I'll email those just because of time. Thank you.
Dennis, I was very impressed that you were able to ask your question and still keep your hand up as well too. That's fairly impressive. Let me see if I can respond to some of your things quickly, and not that I have to do that at all, but I think the short of it is that this is a public art installation. The art would be accessible from dusk till dawn. You know, the site will be open often, all day. It's a public plaza program, so the idea is that there'll be seats, there'll be tables and chairs that are put into the site where people are allowed to be able to, you know, ideally, you know, if you're familiar with the site, there's many businesses, there's some schools, there's residential, you know, families may come and have lunch at the site. folks may just be passing by and want to take a seat at the site. So the site will be open, it will be accessible. That is definitely something we need to consider or will be considered as the art goes up. In terms of protecting the art in a way that um, you know, prevents vandalism and other things like that. Those are the realities of public art, right? It's accessible and people will be able to touch it and feel it and climb on it, potentially, So those are real things that I think we need to consider. You asked a little bit about the budget in terms of like the community engagement. Um, the community engagement pieces of it ideally are coming out of an entirely separate budget and wouldn't impact at all the art installation nor the ability to remove the art at the end of the season. We hope the community engagement will be a mix of things, sort of just passive recreation, like I mentioned before, people grabbing a sandwich, just hanging out. But we also hope, like on the weekends and some evenings, to do some exciting events where we're able to bring in local artists, different performances, and food vendors, and other medians to attract folks to the space. And I know there's some really talented people on this Zoom meeting already, so I encourage y'all to help us build out our calendar of events and activities. The idea is that from July to probably early November, we'll be doing things on the weekend, doing some things on the evening. I personally was inspired by some of what was coming out of the night market concept, where it was like local vendors getting food, and it was like music and sort of people coming and I know there was some issues with night market model as well too. But as a concept, I think that's the idea. How do we bring food into the space? How do we allow for folks to learn from the art, uh, connect with the art, and also engage with the art? But we're hoping that this 50,000, not hoping, we expect that the 50,000 that we have at hand will not be and won't impact the community engagement side of things.
I believe there's also just a quick about how long this is up. We're anticipating anywhere from 5 months to maximum of 11 months, typically in terms of the DOT requirements. But once this is a DOT plaza, we can continue, or PJ can continue to solicit public art in perpetuity. So there'll be more opportunities as Soundview Economic Hub and the space is developed, even beyond this first activation. So but we'll try, and we intend to have it up as long as we possibly can.
So I want to elevate.
Yeah.
Raina has a question.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. I'll make it really quick. I know we're hitting time. I live a few blocks from this area, so I'm incredibly excited about this, whatever it turns out to be. That area, you really need engagement from community, and it's a really somewhat industrial area, so it would be a great space for art. I am part of the Everyday Bronx. It's a Bronx theme Instagram, and we encourage regular Bronxites to document their lives. And so I wondered, would this type of group project or group exhibition would be welcomed in this type of proposal?
The answer is yes. Yeah, I think we want this to be able to be seen and engage with as many Bronx-based artists, and welcome group submissions. Yes, that's the short answer. And there are folks here, or folks that I know who didn't necessarily see this that would be interested in. Please spread the word. Yeah.
Hi, Ryan. Good to see you as well too.
Okay. How much more time do you think we have we have a few other questions. Yeah. Um, let's see. In terms of the amount of time, I know there is a,
Can you repeat the question? I don't know if it's coming out the
Sure.
chat. If Reese or someone, anybody can just repeat the question.
There's a question in the chat I'm just seeing about the amount of time between approval and installation. So this is part of the part of the timeline we had up earlier. We're trying to get we intend to have some preliminary approval in March, be able to submit this for DOT consideration at the beginning of April. There's a 90-day period. Part of that 90-day period is their own preliminary approval and some back and forth. But really it's between now and then and July when we would want to have work installed. And so have that up in July and have our various events take place beyond that, August and September, when the weather's nice. So think about it really as this spring as the bulk of the work. Let's see, other question, or should we can also
Anything in the chat, Reese, that we need to highlight?
I see Jonathan raised his hand again.
I sent I didn't know how to do to everybody, but I sent a quick question to David. I can read it for everybody. I essentially said, is there greater fundraising in play to secure more funding for the art? 50,000 is minimal compared to other budgets and other art projects in the city. Is the DOT coming up with a significant amount of money, since they sort of, it sounds like they sort of are the tenant or the leaseholder of the space? Are other private agencies bringing in dollars? Is there, since there is this massive development that's being considered on the Harlem waterfront by our former Bronx Borough president, is there any tie-in, even though it's much in the future, to some of the massive amount of funding that's coming in that part of the Bronx? I'm just sort of making off the top thoughts just in terms of how much can this small project be aligned with larger events happening in the Bronx? And it sort of comes along with what I initially asked.
I thank you, and I'm glad that you were able to ask everyone, because you sent it to the worst person who's technologically. I would have lost your question, so I'm glad that you were able to ask it to everyone.
Well, yes.
So I think the short of it is, you know, we're definitely first. I took stack of all the resources that you shared and opportunities that are out there, so that we could you know, consider those. You know, we do have a larger fundraising effort. The site is actually being turned over to us as a local community-based organization, Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice. We are now tasked, above and beyond just this art installation, to find the additional resources to ultimately build out what the Soundview Economic Hub is. And you mentioned things like the Kingsbridge Armory and other stuff, and you know, I'm taking notes. We're taking notes and observing what they're doing and learning. And you know, you mentioned EDC and the board president and all of those things. And you know, there's also places like Department of the Cultural Affairs and Bronx Tourism. You know, so we're hoping to leave no stone unturned as it relates directly to the art, but also we hope to turn all the stones over as it relates to the larger vision of the project as well too. At this time, you know, what we hope is that we could potentially leverage some additional resources based on the fact that we do have some money in hand. You know, folks love to come to a party. They don't like to miss a party that is exciting and stuff like that. So, you know, I think the more that we could drum up the excitement with this, we might be able to bring in some other philanthropic type resources. But yeah, 50,000 is a drop in the bucket. And we have to be really creative. We've been creative. Unfortunately, our communities have had to be creative with no resources for far too long. And that's not just the best way to do business in general, but we're going to make something happen with this, and we're going to just be able to try to amplify what we're doing with our success. So I think it's important that at some point the board president is part of this, or
Former borough president.
the
The former borough president is heading up some of that new development larger than the Hudson Yards.
Oh yes, and the former board president, actually, this is his neighborhood. He lives just two blocks away from the actual site in Soundview. So he's a Soundview. I know, but this is former board president Ruben Diaz, I think, is who we're referring to, just so everybody's on the same page. But yeah, he's an ally. He's a resource. Yeah. So thank you for that, Jonathan. And we're definitely taking stock and stack of all of those stones that need to be turned over and shaken, bags that need to be shaken to help support the project. And again, I hope we find some time to talk outside of this, because it seems like you have some other gems that you could share as well too.
It is 7:02, so I want to make sure I respect everyone's time here. But I think in terms of wrapping this up, well, first of all, thank you for everyone who submitted questions. We're going to compile these and provide answers, and we're uploading kind of an FAQ that will speak to these questions, and hopefully have answers that are helpful to you all. With that, or we'll have that. We have the RFP online, and we will also have this recording up online for anyone who wishes to view it again or share it amongst your friends, colleagues who may have missed today. Let's bring up the last slide. Just
else, maybe?
Sorry. The last slide, or just on timeline. So again, I think want to make sure folks, we want to be able to get his submissions in before the 6th. We will be spending March reviewing, and we will hope to let you know no later than the date above. Some back and forth and making sure that we will submit together on behalf of on the DOT Art Intervention Program. The aim is April, and then installation dates, in July, and with art up and installed and for view throughout the rest of the calendar year and possibly into 2025. Just let us know, and we will work to get that potentially extended through up to 11 months. Let us know if there are any aspects of this RFP that are giving you trouble. I know the budget is a sticking point, but again, we're happy to talk through any aspects of that are giving you pause. Ultimately, we want to see as many submissions as we can, and really excited to see what folks have in store, and we're really excited to be working together. Any remaining thoughts from design team, YMPJ?
How do we,
you
guys?
I think. Oh, sorry.
How do we get in touch? Is there a list of emails for you, Joel? And
yes,
yes,
I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and I have been in. You've probably been receiving emails from me. And the last thing I was gonna say is as and when there are updates with this process as well, we will reach out over email. Also, for folks who are good with Instagram, we're definitely updating our Instagram often, and we have updates on our website. I'm also gonna put that page in the chat for folks to check. There we go. Thanks, Joel. Yeah, and feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Thank you so much for attending today, and we're really excited to see all the proposals that we get.
Thanks, everyone.